Pictures Podcast.
Or morning or afternoon, wherever and whenever you are listening to your podcasts. I am your host, Sam Karpinski, along with your co-host, Mr. Jose Mendoza. And we are the co-hosts of the smashing podcast, Popcorn and Pictures, where we talk about the latest, greatest in cinema, and maybe even some of the latest, greatest of old cinema.
Yeah.
I guess it's not
true.
latest. It's oldest and greatest of cinema. So today, normally contemporary cinema. Yeah, normally we, cover a few movies, what's hot, what's not, give our takes. Today we're going to do a little something different. We're going to take a more of a bird's eye view on one particular filmmaker who has a major blockbuster out now that's just dominating the box office, is far and away can be one of the most successful films of the year. I am talking, of course, about the film The Odyssey, an adaptation of Homer's work, and then Christopher Nolan, the writer-director of that movie. We're going to talk about Odyssey and our thoughts on it a little bit later, but we thought we'd take a moment to kind of offer some look at Nolan's filmography in retrospect, to kind of celebrate, I think, what is now probably universally considered one of the greatest filmmakers in the modern era, if not the greatest. Certainly, I think you can contend whether you think he's the greatest filmmaker from an artistic perspective or not is obviously up for debate. He's certainly in the conversation, but
yes,
I think you can't debate that he is, of all the directors, he is the one who has the most successful commercial appeal. Like, people will show up to a movie just because it's Christopher Nolan directing it. That's, I think, indisputable at this point.
I was going to say another title, the most successful art house director of all time, probably.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, for sure.
Yeah. He's, no real introduction. I feel like he's very mainstream, but in a good way. He's not like J.J. Abrams. He's
JJ.
the director. James Cameron is another example, but he's one of the few directors he's one of the few directors like James Cameron. And I think J.J. Abrams to some degree, where, if he wants to make a movie, he's going to get the financing, like, no question about it. He just has that power, which a lot of directors don't have. Some examples, like Steven Spielberg might have had that at one point, but I can't say he has that anymore. Quentin Tarantino doesn't have that power. Christopher Nolan has, like, it's like the studio heads. He's on the same level as a studio head, despite being a director, and that's kind of a feat right there.
He has earned the capital to where every one of his movies have been a success to varying degrees, to the point where he can, like you said, literally just ask for whatever capital he wants, and odds are most of the time the studio is going to give it to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, honestly, we'll get into it, but I do have my gripes, not necessarily with him, but kind of the conversation that's around Christopher Nolan. I agree. He's one of the best filmmakers of our time. There's no question about that. Whether you love him or hate him, he does have a lot of great movies under his belt. But I was kind of thinking in preparation for this conversation, he seems very, every director is kind of a genius in their own way. Like Tarantino, I always talk about him, but he's an artist in a way. But Christopher Nolan, I feel like, is quite literally a genius. Like, he just has an understanding of, maybe not even like, maybe he didn't understand all of like the astrophysics or like the chemistry that it took to make Interstellar or Oppenheimer. But when he talks about it in his press, what do you call it? I guess when he's like,
just the media events, press tour,
Press tour. There you go. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about. So he seems like I feel like any field of study or whatever he went into, he could have been successful in whatever. He just seems like a very intelligent guy. Yeah.
Intelligent, and also very diligent about, his work.
Sure.
Like, it seems to be very much a hard worker. I mean, he was, as I'm sure rejected from film school at one
I
point.
did not know that, actually.
And, yeah. I found that out in an interview with him. Back, I don't know, maybe a month ago. Yeah, he was rejected from film school and didn't go to that film school he was trying to get in, and look at where he's at today. Makes you wonder whether we need film schools,
No, it's not necessary. I mean, if you have the passion and the resources to, get there, it does take a lot of learning. But if you're able to, get it yourself, who am I to speak? But
there's a lot of great filmmakers who didn't go like a conventional route, for sure. I think he's just the most prominent example today, but he's not the only one, for sure.
Like I said, I think he's a great filmmaker. A lot of his movies are fantastic. I recently saw a few of them in preparation for this conversation. But yeah, a lot of people consider him to be like a modern day Stanley Kubrick or Alfred Hitchcock, which I guess to some degree, if there is someone, he probably is one. Do I think his movies are at that level? Alfred Hitchcock, I'm not necessarily a big fan of. It's Kubrick. Probably.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not really, I don't know if it's a fair conversation, because I think they have different styles, flourishes. So, to say one's greater than the other, I think kind of is beside the point. I think they're all great to varying degrees, and they all have kind of their unique flavor. And because it's art, you interpret it and enjoy it to the level you want to, or you feel like it. So yeah, true.
Yeah. And since we saw the Odyssey, I feel like I've kind of grown like a more deeper appreciation for him. But I mean, we get into it
for sure. Well, I mean, he's got now 11 films. No, I'm sorry.
No,
13 films. 13 films. He had 11 films like 5 years ago. Now he has 13 films. Yeah. So obviously he had some like short films and stuff he made when he was, just getting started out. But we're just going to kind of constrict our kind of look back to, his actual long narrative films. So start with the noir film Following, which, Jose, I believe you just recently finished watching for the first time.
17 minutes ago, yeah.
Fresh off the presses. We're basically getting a live, instant take on whether Following is good or not, 25 plus years later.
Yes. I mean, I guess I'll go first because I saw it recently. But something about this movie, I even told you I was like kind of hesitant to watch, mainly because the thing that defines Nolan is like I said, he is like the most successful art house director today. But the thing is, now he's kind of defined by like his epic scale filmmaking, and something about The Following just kind of like dissuaded me from watching that, just because it feels so independent. I know in most cases that should fascinate me, because like, what can he do with minimal resources? But I finally got around to it. A nice 70-minute movie, a little over an hour. And it was pleasant. It's kind of nice to see kind of the early stylistic choices that Nolan does, which is like nonlinear storytelling. Music seems to be like a big thing in his movies, and the music was pretty great in this film. Hans Zimmer isn't composing it, but the music was pretty great. I mean, it's a pleasant directorial debut. I can't speak.
That's a wild way to describe it. It's a pleasant directorial debut. I think it's an entertaining good, for a directorial debut. It's like entertaining and good,
It's endearing in the sense that like I think it's just funny because he's like in the streets of, I guess, what appears to be London. I'm not too sure where exactly it's filmed, but he's like in the streets. People are walking by him, like presumably just extras, but they don't know they're extras really. And like they're walking next to Christopher Nolan, who one day is going to be like one of the best directors. It's kind of endearing in that sense, like, oh, look what he's doing at such a young age, and like with this fun film.
Well, to your point, talking about you mentioned like how, maybe it should be more endearing just because of like seeing what he's able to do with less, and I think that is the case. It's fun to like see, okay, you can see all the little strands, like you mentioned, from a plot perspective, like the nonlinear storytelling, that immediately shows up in following, and works into the plot. And obviously that becomes kind of a staple of the majority of his films, his nonlinear storytelling to one degree or another. So it's fun seeing that. I think it also has a decent twist at the end for it. Nothing like earth shattering, but it's like it reframes the rest of the movie in a way that you may not have, I won't say not seen coming, but not thought of it in the way it was presented. Yeah, if that makes sense. So I don't feel the need to be particularly sensitive to spoilers, given the movie is 26, 27 years old now.
Something like that.
But it is a film that I think is largely successful on how you feel the twist is executed at the end, and I think it does a decent job. It's obviously the work of a young filmmaker, somebody who's getting his feet wet. It's not going to blow you away, but it's a solid, like you said, directorial debut.
Yeah. If you're a fan of like The Dark Knight or like Inception, I mean, if that's a kind of what your idea of movies are, you probably won't get a lot out of this unless you're like a huge and it really comes down to like curiosity is what it is. If you're curious about what he was able to do, you'll enjoy it. But of course, it's not like an epic thing. Obviously, it shouldn't be. When I said endearing, though, it's like, there's like a Batman logo at one point in the movie, which is really funny. In the main character's bedroom, there's like a poster of Reservoir Dogs in the background, which I just think is so funny. It's funny because, Christopher Nolan probably wanted to get to that point where Tarantino was at that point, and now like they're kind of at the top of their game. It's funny.
Well, they're at the top of their game, but like Nolan is obviously
more successful,
without a doubt more successful, than Tarantino on a complete level. Which is not to say one filmmaker is necessarily better than the other. I mean, I have my personal opinions, of course, but that's just what they are as opinions. It's just a reflection of that Nolan is hitting the zeitgeist more consistently than, say, somebody like Tarantino.
Yeah, sure. So, right.
So, yeah, following's pretty solid. Any more thoughts on that?
No, like I said, it's like a nice precursor to the next movie, which we'll talk about. Unless you have anything to say, I think we could segue into Memento.
No. Again, it's worth checking out if you're a fan of Nolan and kind of want the complete picture of like seeing where he started and now where he's ended up with Odyssey currently. So, yeah, the next film is also pretty small scale, but it definitely is the one that I think everybody agrees kind of put him on the map as somebody who is like, oh, this guy could go places, and that's Memento with starring Guy Pearce. And Memento is probably the most of his movies that employ a nonlinear narrative. It's probably the one that is the most extreme in that way. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. It's the driving force of the movie. I feel like for a lot of people, when you kind of like understand what's finally happening, it's like many of his movies, it's a puzzle and you're kind of there to like figure out the puzzle. It's such a brilliant way of just like telling a story in the sense that the joke is like you have to watch the movie backwards to understand it, which isn't necessarily the case. But, what happens is every scene. How do you even describe the movie? I'll let you take a shot at that. But it's almost like every scene is the
the narrative is basically partially told backwards. So the conceit of the movie is right that the main character suffers from extreme short-term memory loss and basically amnesia. Forgets everything. Yeah. And so he's having to constantly. It's called Memento. Partially because of he's constantly like kind of leaving things or writing stuff down to kind of remind him of the things that's going on. Now the movie is built around a murder mystery essentially, where he's trying to track down the person who he thinks killed his wife, and he only has certain clues to go by, and then he forgets them, so he has to make sure he keeps track of them, and that's kind of the vehicle for the film. Obviously, there's a few twists and turns along the way, but that's the general conceit. So I'd say it's a movie that it's not completely told in reverse because hey, that's kind of impossible to do, you know.
Yeah, of course.
But it's told, I'd say, backwards, if that makes sense. Yeah, not reverse, but backwards.
The start of every scene is the end of the previous scene, and kind of in between all the backwards, you know, quote unquote backwards scenes is I guess another story that happens in chronological order, and eventually, it's almost like a U-shaped story. Where there's like a great video where he's like using a chalkboard or a whiteboard to like kind of illustrate how the narrative works, and it's just brilliant because in that, like with the movie, like if we were to take the actual film and just kind of edit in chronological order, the ending that we got is the middle of the movie. And it just kind of works so perfectly because like it's the middle of the story, but it serves as like a perfect ending to like the way he's telling the story. It's a really brilliant movie. And I guess spoiler for my take, but I think this is my favorite Nolan movie just because it's such a brilliant way of telling a story, something I've never quite seen done before. I always have a fun time watching it. I always feel like I learn something new. I pick up new stuff.
It's definitely one of his most unique. It's funny. I hold it in still very high esteem. I think of the 13, it comes in as number 5 on my list. Which maybe we'll reveal our personal rankings by the end of the podcast. You can work on that if you haven't already.
I have a list. I have a list actually. Okay, cool. That, but I didn't even think about doing that.
Yeah, we could do it. Okay. Yeah, it's probably the film of his that just from like a thematic perspective, like I disagree with the most. Just my own personal philosophy and worldview, but it's told in such a brilliant way that you can't help but admire the craft, and that's why I rank it so highly. Is because just as a pure entertaining piece, an artistic piece, it's up there with most films. So there's a couple things I would tweak. Sometimes I think it gets a little too cute, and I confess it's been a while, so I can't, like, something doesn't come to mind, but I think it sometimes gets a little too cute with a reverse or backward storytelling, as I was saying. But it's still a great film, and I will say it makes me bummed because Guy Pearce has never worked with him again since then. And Guy Pearce is one of, I think, the more underrated actors we have working right now, and he's fantastic in the lead role as Shelby is his character's name. But it's just a great low stakes. I don't know if you would call it a noir. I think it's more just a mystery, kind of a mystery, but with a unique storytelling plot device, to tell a story.
Yeah, definitely. Very great. What's that term? PTA does them a lot. Character study. There you go. In the sense that, like, talk about a movie that really puts you in the perspective of the character, like just kind of like trying to remember things. It's great. I like I said, I also enjoy it in the same way, like The Following, just like kind of everything that we know about Nolan, but stripped back to basically be like, lack of a better word, like an independent movie, basically. Like I said, I think it might be my favorite, but we'll see.
Stay tuned. We'll find out later before the end of this podcast. Is it Jose's favorite? Actually, only time will tell. Anyway, moving on. We moved to
I mean, one last thing. I feel like with a lot of Nolan movies too. This is kind of like, I know we'll transition to Insomnia, but I feel like a lot of movies are like milestone movies in his career, which is kind of impressive because there's so much of them. I feel like Memento. A lot of people say Memento is kind of what got him to convince Warner Brothers to actually make the Batman movie. But we'll talk about it later. But I think Memento was kind of the first movie that kind of solidified him as, a voice that should be heard.
And just as an aside, also, he co-wrote it with his brother, and his brother went on to co-write some of his more commercially successful films. And his brother is also pretty successful, not to the same degree, but has also led a successful career. So, you mentioned it. Insomnia is his next, which came out in 2002. and it's actually a remake, which the only remake at this point that he's done of a Norwegian film that's also titled Insomnia. And the plot is basically, I wouldn't say it's a murder mystery because you kind of know who's done what pretty quickly, but it's more of a psychological thriller. Is like what's going to happen. You're having all these pieces laid out, and it's building to something that follows Al Pacino as a Los Angeles detective who, along with his partner, gets assigned, like, I forget what the actual legal term is, but basically just gets on loan to an Alaskan town to solve a mystery, a murder mystery. And it takes the title from Insomnia because it's during basically the White Nights of Alaska, where there's, no night for lack of a better term. And it's just constantly white. And one thing or another happens, and Al Pacino, due to that natural factor and also things that happen event-wise during the course of the film, ends up having insomnia, and that forms kind of the basis of the movie. So it's pretty solid. I wouldn't say it's like it feels kind of weird. It feels like kind of like his most conventional movie, if that makes sense.
I agree.
Yeah, but it's very well done. It's just it doesn't feel as adventurous or unique as some of his other films.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I can't speak much about it because we should clarify too. Like a lot of these movies are kind of based off memory. No, I did see it, but it was a long time ago. It was a little after Oppenheimer.
Yeah,
and kind of a testament to how I feel about the movie because I remember like enjoying it in the moment, but what I definitely enjoyed was the idea of, there is like some sort of crime element that's happening throughout the story. But for me, the more interesting part was just kind of how Al Pacino was like just suffering from lack of sleep and just how badly that torments basically his, not even his work life, but his personal life. But yeah, something about this just didn't quite click. And I think this is kind of the fear that obviously has been disproven, but like, this is definitely the route that Nolan could have gone, like just kind of made a lot of good generic movies, basically. It's one of the better ones for sure, but I'm not quite impressed by it, unfortunately.
It's one of those movies that I think it does have some good stuff to say, but it definitely is not transcendent or feels like it's headed in a route that could be transcendent, even if it doesn't get there. I do want to highlight one thing. Also, kind of makes me, upset we didn't get more of this actor paired with Nolan. But I think it's one of Robin Williams' more underrated performances. He's excellent as kind of the main antagonist in the story, and I almost don't want to say too much of it, but he's really good, and I think it's kind of underrated, the performance he gives.
I won't you're right. I won't spoil it too much, but I'm kind of looking at Robin Williams' career. And, he's definitely played some serious roles. Of course, he's known for his comedy, but this is like the first time where he's like creepy, basically.
Yeah, just never a straight up villain. Robin Williams.
Yeah, but no spoilers.
He pulls it off very well, though. Hilary Swank's also in the movie. She's solid in the role. The whole cast is solid as you would expect. It's a very competently done film. Like everything works. It's just, again, it doesn't feel like particularly unique, which, I mean, it's a remake, so that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Unless you have anything to say, his next movie is kind of like the big one that kind of changed the course of, again, another milestone movie, but of course a sequel.
Well, it's funny. So his next one kind of set him on the path to success, and also started to, not entirely, and we'll get to that, but started to also change a particular film genre, or at least recontextualize the conversation. And we're talking about the first of his Dark Knight trilogy, Batman Begins. featuring Christian Bale as the Caped Crusader.
And one thing you failed to mention too is it kind of I remember I was in band class in high school, and my band teacher said that I remember her saying that, oh, it's so cool that Batman's like cool again. And that's what kind of Christopher Nolan did, because you remember before this.
You were in high school when Batman Begins?
No. I was saying this is around the time where the Dark Knight Rises was coming out. And my band teacher,
jumping ahead.
My band teacher said like, "Oh, it's cool because this guy's making Batman cool again." Because if you think about it, before then we were getting like George Clooney Batman. Like he kind of made Batman basically what it is today.
Right, Batman. I wouldn't say he revived him to a degree, because you look at, I mean, they're definitely different, but they're also pretty dark. The Tim Burton films, were taken serious and were all commercially successful. It's when Michael Keaton and Tim Burton both left that it really started to fall apart. And you're right. You got like, it ended with like George Clooney Batman, and nobody could take it seriously. You had like stuff like the Bat Credit Card, and not done in the tongue-in-cheek way that the 60s Batman TV show was. It was very not self-aware. And so, I mean, the character was kind of at a crossroads, and I forget. Let me see if I have this right, because if I remember correctly, there was another fairly notable director that was originally contracted to do the part, but I could be wrong. I am completely wrong. Yeah, I'm completely wrong. So he was hired, but it was primarily, it sounds like, on the strength of his work at Memento.
Yeah, I remember watching like a interview or something, or like maybe it was like a short documentary about Batman Begins. But yeah, it was kind of there was a lot of doubt whether like this independent filmmaker could even handle something like Batman. But if you think about it, with his previous movies, Batman is noirish. So even though they had doubts, like the character definitely suited what he is kind of, what he likes to tell. He likes to tell a noir story. This was definitely suited for him.
Well, no, I think that's a good point. Is up to that point, he was mostly telling crime-driven stories. Like they all involve crime in one degree or another. And you're right. Obviously, Batman's whole purpose is to fight crime, as a character. But yeah, so I mean, he directs Batman Begins. Had David S. Goyer, who collaborated with him on the subsequent film as well, to write the script, and obviously definitely still has Nolan's fingerprints on it. And it was the first. It wasn't just that it proved to be a good film and got people taking Batman seriously again. It also just proved to be kind of a subversion of the expectation that most comic book movies had to be like light to one degree or another. Is there's still moments of comedy like in Batman Begins, but it's overall very much leaning into the fact that this guy's kind of a nut. So he's obviously, it's Batman, he's a billionaire who has everything but other than his parents, of course, but he dresses like a bat and goes up and beats criminals at night.
Yeah, you're gonna say, you kind of took the words out of my mouth, but like he was able to kind of elevate the superhero genre to like a more grounded reality. It's superheroes, so it's not real, but it feels grounded, which kind of unleashed like a whole plethora of movies that try to be grounded. Zack Snyder tried to do the same thing with Man of Steel, which was kind of more in response to The Dark Knight. But another thing he does well is, he again, going back to the idea of keeping it grounded. The movie is basically, it's Batman, but it's more about like, okay, if this person were to exist, what's the psychology that would have to happen for someone to actually kind of take on this role? So in a way, it's kind of like it's more of like an interesting character study than it is an actual superhero movie. It's more of a I should know this. What's his name? Bruce Wayne movie than a actual Batman movie. And,
yeah. Well, you make a great point, because like it's been pointed out by other people as well, but the Batman like in costume does not show up till like an hour into the film. Like, it truly is like, it does such a good job laying out like an origin story for the character. I do think it is, in my opinion, the best superhero origin movie, and how meticulous it is at putting in all the things that make Batman, at the outset.
I agree. When I think of like superhero origin movies, what comes to mind is like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man and Batman Begins. One thing that we didn't mention is that you and I actually saw this like a few years ago together. Like just one day late in the night, we just got together and just watched this. Yeah, so it's kind of fresh in my mind, and I was hesitant because I've seen the Dark Knight more times than I've seen Batman Begins. I think I've only seen Batman Begins twice before you and I saw it. So I was like, I don't know if I want to watch that. Like, what's in this movie for me to appreciate? But no, I was it felt like I was rewatching because I'm like, this movie is actually pretty solid on its own. Like, it's nowhere near the Dark Knight, but it's really, really good.
Well, speak for yourself. It is funny because again, we don't want to go too far into the Dark Knight, skip ahead, but because of the Dark Knight's success, it's like unquestioned success. It is funny, like how many people kind of forget how good Batman
there you
Begins
go. That's a nice way
is,
of putting it.
It's because it is. It's just all any other. If it was followed by any other conventional sequel, we would be talking about, oh man, how good that first one was. It's too bad they aren't able to continue. It just happened to be followed by probably certainly the greatest comic book movie sequel ever, if not one of the great sequels of all time. So. Yeah. So we're getting to that. Batman Begins, really good, and solidified him as somebody who could not only was a talented filmmaker, but also trustworthy with big blockbuster movies. And what's funny is it did all right. Like, it still made its money back, but it wasn't like some crazy success. It was well received enough and did well enough in the home video sales that it gave him enough momentum to continue, with the Dark Knight. So yeah, it's good. But in between Batman Begins and the Dark Knight, he did a adaptation of a book by the author known as Christopher Priest called The Prestige. And that one also stars Christian Bale, in addition to Hugh Jackman and several other notable actors and actresses. And it's actually one of my favorites of his, especially non-Batman related. And it basically just follows two magicians who are both talented in different ways, and their increasingly violent rivalry.
Yeah.
So it's excellent. I mean, what are your thoughts on it? We watched it together not too long ago too. Well, I guess it was a couple.
No, that
wasn't
me. You're confusing me with someone else because I haven't seen this movie in a very long time. I think you're confusing me. Yeah, I didn't see this. I've seen it before.
I thought you were there at the office. We watched it. We wanted.
No, not
okay.
Me.
Well, there I go. I need to write down my memories like Guy Pearce's character.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I will not be able to contribute much to this conversation because I've seen The Prestige. I must have, I don't know what it was where I wasn't like quite focused into the movie. It was probably back in college where I was like doing homework and looking up at the screen, I don't know. I've seen it once in my life, and, I'm sure the movie's great. I'm sure it's great. I don't remember a lot about it just because I wasn't really focused into the movie. So unfortunately I can't speak too much about it. I can't, unfortunately. So I'm going to have to let you to steer the, I was trying to squeeze in a lot of Nolan movies before this episode. That was the last one I was trying to squeeze in, but I couldn't get around to it, unfortunately. So,
well, folks, if you've also made the mistake of not having seen this film, it is going to get a re-release.
Oh, that's right.
In the next. Can't remember before the end of the year or the beginning of next year, but coming soon. So go check it out in theaters. I definitely will. But the film as a whole is. It reads very much like the Batman films in the tone, because it's very dark and serious. But unlike the Batman films, there's not, I would say, a lot of like hope. It's really just a tale of like how these two guys basically destroy everything around them because they're so consumed by their rivalry with each other. It also has just give a shout out. David Bowie shows up as Nikola Tesla, and the film obviously is not historical, and it actually uses his character in kind of a science fiction way, but it works very well, and kind of gets to, Nolan's renowned for being like a grounded filmmaker, right? So it kind of gets to what we've talked in the past, right? Like, grounded doesn't necessarily mean like you're talking about something that is possible. It just means adhering to the rules and the character dynamics you have set up, right? And that's how the sci-fi element in The Prestige works, is because it's completely out of left field in the sense that it's set in like Victorian London. It's not at all a science fiction film, other than the major thing at the end with Tesla. But because it complements the rest of the story so well, it works. And I think it's probably one of his most, I think a lot of people, just because it was in between the Batmans, kind of forget about it. And
it was
also
early in his career too.
Maybe just haven't seen it. Yeah, it was still relatively early in his career. So it's but I think it's, aside from Batman, probably the one that showed kind of the most where he was headed in terms of stuff outside of Batman.
So like I said, I haven't seen it, but I do remember that much where I'm like, oh, this definitely it's starting to feel like this looks like a Christopher Nolan movie. It looks like, I don't know if, is it Roger Deakins who worked with Nolan, like in The Dark Knight and Batman Begins? I think so, right?
No, Wally.
Oh, you're right.
Wally
You're right.
Pfister.
Okay, my mistake. But yeah, like you could start telling like, oh, this is kind of like his staple look. This is kind of the style that he's going for. Like I said, I'll rewatch at some point. I'm excited to. I just couldn't get around to it, unfortunately. Also, you said David Bowie. It's David Bowie. I'm not sure you heard me say that.
David Bowie. My bad. David, rest in peace.
Yeah. Great actor. Great actor.
Indeed. The great actor, yeah, great talent all around. It also has Andy Serkis, fresh off his Golem turns. Funny enough, it's a great cast. It's a great cast. Anyway, so we already kind of touched on it, but the next film was what a lot of people, I think most people still at this point, consider his greatest film. The Dark Knight, which is the sequel to Batman Begins. It really, as like I said, Batman Begins was kind of a modest success, but it, I think, really like just rehabilitated the character as a cinematic property. And The Dark Knight just took that and completely just ran with it and turned it not only to just being, oh, Batman's back, but like, oh, this is just a good film, period. absent Batman. Like, you could take this story and it would still rock. So The Dark Knight obviously starts fairly quickly after Batman Begins. The main thrust of it is Batman coming into conflict with Heath Ledger's Joker. Your thoughts, Jose?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to talk about this movie just because like it's such a decade-defining film for the 2000s.
It's also been talked about to like no end.
Yeah, I mean, like there's literally nothing really to say that's not new here. I remember when it was coming out, my parents were excited to see it too. There was a whole conversation about, I mean, the biggest thing to talk about is like Heath Ledger, of course, right? Like people are still talking about his performance today, which I can't really ever say like a one singular performance kind of like, for a lot of people, is kind of what makes the movie. Of course, there's a lot of great things about it too, but I feel like whenever people talk about the movie, Heath Ledger's name always has to come up. It's just a great.
It's probably the most iconic part of it. Yeah, iconic piece of it. Yeah.
I mean, I remember even like most of the posters. What like? Am I mistaken? I feel like a lot, like my Blu-ray cover is like the Joker. It is. It's him. It's him holding the AK-47. He's just such force in that movie where they kind of just like marketed around him, and also even besides the character or the actor character performance, the the subgenre too of whatever you call this, a crime thriller, like at the same level as like he is with Michael Mann.
Yeah.
It's like, even if it's not a superhero movie, it works as just like a fantastic cat and mouse game crime thriller told on an epic scale. Yeah, I mean, it's something I could always just put on the background and just like enjoy it. I don't necessarily have to tune in because there's just so many great moments where I find myself invested in it just because there's so many great moments. Yeah, I mean, again, talk about. Just talk about another milestone movie. Like, he's full of them. I'm going to keep mentioning the milestone, but this is like when
absolutely. But I think this is the one that more than anything really solidified. Oh, this guy's really, really good. I think I think most people like who care about film at that point like knew that. But I think this was the point where, like, commercially speaking, it was like everybody was like, "Oh, this guy's really good."
I know what you're saying, and I agree to some extent. But it's still like the Batman name that's kind of driving the movie, right? Like, I think if I were to reflect back in the day, I think my parents would have known this movie because it's a Batman movie, not because it's Christopher Nolan. I think the next movie that we're going to talk about, obviously Inception, I think that's kind of what solidified him as like, oh, okay, this guy's not a one-trick pony. Like, he can make something.
No, but that's kind of my point is I think because of his success with The Dark Knight and how good that was, I think it caught a lot of people off guard at how elevated it was compared to the stuff in the genre that had come before. That propelled him because, I mean, they were prominent. Warner Brothers was prominently featuring him, called out as the director of The Dark Knight in the marketing for Inception. Like, it was huge. I'm saying like people knew like, oh, this is the guy who made The Dark Knight. That was really good, and kind of a lot of people probably thought, oh, that changed what I think about comic book movies, that they can be. So
I guess what I'm trying to say too is, okay, you're probably right, but I think Inception kind of took it a step further because people are like, oh, this guy could take an original story.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying this is what like kind of put him in the public's eye.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're saying the same thing, but
maybe.
Yeah.
Your choice, folks. Was it The Dark Knight or Inception that made Nolan?
What I'm trying to say is, like, Inception was like, there's no like IP to associate with that, right? That's like an original idea. I think people were like, oh, this guy, Christopher Nolan, could take a brand new idea and make something great. It doesn't have to be a Batman, And I think that's when people realize that. True. But that's what I'm trying to say. We're saying the same thing.
Yeah,
but,
I gotcha. Well, as you said, the movies. Also, yeah, go ahead.
No. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go for it.
I was going to say this, like, again, kind of redefined Hollywood in many ways too, because from my understanding, this movie not being considered in the Academy Awards for like Best Picture, Best Director,
good point.
kind of opened up the nominations to include more movies into the Best Picture race because of this movie.
For better or for worse, you can argue, but the fact is, it was impactful enough to cause that, and I can't think of any other movie that's done that. So. Yeah, absolutely. I do want to just call out a few quick things. Again, you can break down the movie a million different ways. It's been talked about to death, but I just want to highlight a couple of things because they play into stuff in his career down the line. One is the casting, obviously, of Heath Ledger as the Joker. As Heath Ledger at that point, I think, was known as a pretty talented actor, but that certainly, I think, kind of changed people's opinions like of what he could do and really made people, I was thinking about this the other day because I watched another film with him and it really, man, like this guy was about to go on like a generational run. He was gone too soon to put it mildly, but he was a true master of his craft and completely the thing also is about that performance is it's a character that obviously has had so much source material. You were gonna possibly piss. You could argue there was no way for him to please people, but I think almost everyone universally agrees he's a great Joker because he takes the character and makes it his own. There's several unique things, but everything is still 100% true to the spirit of the character and the iconography of the character. So big shout out to that. And also Nolan, because Nolan was derided for that at the time, was like, why the heck are you casting Heath Ledger from A Knight's Tale and Brokeback Mountain and the Joker. Why would you do that? And he ignored it, obviously, and that was the right choice. And I say that because he's in other films right now. There's been some casting choices that people have taken issue with, and it's like, let the man cook. Let's see what he comes up with. And he said that in his interviews with the Odyssey, that people criticize him don't bother him, because he's like, hey, remember, I directed the Batman movies. I've already gotten like a bunch of flack for my cast. So I thought that's interesting. And then the other big thing from a technical perspective is the use of IMAX in The Dark Knight, which was really was groundbreaking, like how he used IMAX in the action sequences of The Dark Knight. And at the time, I think had the most IMAX sequences in a film for sure. And I mean, the opening scene in the film sequence in the film is all shot in IMAX and is also kind of iconic. So that kind of is like the first time where you're kind of really seeing his love affair with IMAX, which is crystallized now, kind of at its origins. So those are the two things I just wanted to kind of point out before we moved on.
I'll never forget I think I must have been in 8th grade, like going to that movie, in that opening scene. Like if I was older, I'm like, oh, this is the type of movie we're watching. Like it's not a superhero movie. It's like it's so that opening scene is just
it's a crime
it's
film.
Nolan. And Nolan's like, okay, this is what you paid to watch, and we're going to watch it. Like it's such a great opening. Yeah.
And also an iconic character introduction for the Joker. Like it tells you everything you need to know about that character in 5 minutes, so yeah, it's great. Moving on to The Dark Knight, to the aforementioned Inception, what you would say is what put him on the map.
I think
I know that's not what you're. I know that's not how you're
I think
saying
these two movies back to back, I think solidified Nolan as mainstream. Like, okay, this is one of our greatest living directors right now. Inception. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see this one in theaters when I was a kid. I didn't quite care about movies that much to like actually go to them. Granted, I live far away from movies, so it was hard for me to get to them. But no, this is kind of his first step into like conceptually mind-bending ideas of like dreams within dreams. Another decade-defining movie in many ways for the 2010s. Practical effects are out of this world.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's interesting because I'll reveal my ranking of it later, but it's I think his most like overrated film, but I don't even know if overrated is the right word, because it's a very entertaining film, just like as just a fun like diversion from life. Like it hits, like it's just fun. Like it's just fun, and it does have deeper meaning behind it. But I think a lot of people tend to assign more meaning to it than it has, if that makes sense. I think it's actually a relatively straightforward story, and it's an interesting conceit, the dream within dreams, but it's not that complicated. In my opinion, I feel like a lot of the discourse around that movie was, oh, it's so crazy, mind bending. It's like, you have to see it multiple times to really understand what's going on. And I've never felt that way about that movie. I've enjoyed it each time I've watched it, but I can't say like I've gotten a ton more out of it.
No, I know exactly what you're saying, because I feel the same way too. When I said like conceptually mind bending, like you're right, it is pretty straightforward. But there's kind of like, I guess now that we know what he's capable of today, there's kind of like like if I could go back in time and be like, people are like, oh man, this is like the craziest like idea I've ever seen in a movie. I'm almost want to be like, well, just you wait, just see what else he's capable of, because now like in hindsight with everything else that he's made, this feels like Christopher Nolan light, I agree. Over time, it's still a great movie. I gave it like an 8 out of 10, a light 8 out of 10, but after seeing like his later movies like Interstellar, Tenet, Dunkirk, it's like, okay, this is
he still had another gear. He still had another gear to hit. Although with that being said, you can argue he hit it already with The Dark Knight, but in terms of his non-franchise films, certainly, I don't have too much more to say on that. It's still a fun, entertaining film, and it's just, and it is a fun concept. It really is. It's like a heist film, but with dreams, in dreams, so
as great as it is, I can talk. It's one of the few movies where I never like kind of see myself like wanting to revisit, at least from his filmography. Like Batman Begins, I'd rather watch. I kind of put this in the same, not necessarily ranking as Insomnia, but like I never want to really see Insomnia again. I've seen Inception enough where I'm like, okay, I think I'm kind of, if it's on the background or if it's on TV or something, I'll watch it. But yeah, Tapped Out. There you go. The hype is over. He made much better versions of this movie.
Inception, it's not good anymore. There's no reason to watch it, folks. Okay, shuffle it. Let it die.
Well, listen to this. Let me look it up real quickly. Give me 1 second. It'll just be really fast.
I will say while you're looking that up, one thing it does, I think, have is some great iconic imagery. Like some very cool stuff, and obviously the cast is great, as pretty much every cast in a Nolan film is. So.
This is what I wanted to confirm. Number 14 on IMDb's top 250. That's a little too high. That's kind of where I'm going.
Number 14?
Yep. Right ahead of Empire Strikes Back, Goodfellas, Interstellar, Saving Private Ryan. I don't think it's...
What about Letterboxd? It can't be nearly as high on Letterboxd. That's
what I'm saying. It's kind of like that idea of the movie, which kind of like taints it for me. I'm like, it's good, but come on, guys. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, for real. Well, yeah. I mean, again, it's art. It's subjective, right? For some people, it probably is a top 20 movie. And again, you're right to just because we're giving it a retrospective. This is what solidified for. I'm sure the studios was like, oh, this guy's gonna make us bank.
Yeah.
Like, so
give him more money.
Exactly. Yeah. Give him more money. So, with that, he returned to franchise filmmaking to cap the Dark Knight trilogy with The Dark Knight Rises in 2012. I don't want to waste too much time on it, but let's just say it's obviously the least well received of the trilogy. It was still very successful. I think most people still do have a relatively positive view of it. It's just nowhere near the heights of the previous two movies, and it's definitely the most, I think the one that feels the most comic booky, but in a negative sense, in that it just feels like there's a lot going on, very sensational, doesn't feel as grounded as certainly The Dark Knight or even Batman Begins to a degree. So,
yeah. For me, with this movie was, it was coming out like a weird time in my life. Like I was about to get my driver's license. I was playing.
You were like, I want to drive the Batplane.
No, it was like I could drive myself to a movie to see this. I could drive my brother and me. I was playing Arkham Asylum a lot, so like the Batman hype was there. And back in the day, I enjoyed it because it's just like it was hype. I'm like, oh, this is great. But after seeing all these years, what the movie reminds me of, or what it screams to me, is I think after Inception, Christopher Nolan was just like kind of ready to do more original ideas, kind of like, it's followed by Interstellar, right? He was ready to make more movies like that, but I feel like he promised a trilogy that he didn't really want to make anymore. So it feels very, you might disagree, but I feel like it's very half-assed compared to his previous two films.
Well, that's interesting. I think I can see a scenario where I think he would have been very enthusiastic because I think he had more plans with Heath Ledger before Heath Ledger passed away. So I think that probably played into it somewhat. But I think I don't know if he was contractually obligated or not. But I'm sure the studio was pressing him for it. And that being said, I do think him being a storyteller, there was a part of him that wanted to see it through and conclude, the story. And I think that's kind of my love-hate relationship with the film is there's a lot of stuff I would change, but thematically it still hits a lot of like highs and for me kind of just still feels like, oh, that's a good thematic conclusion to the story. Yeah, it could have been told better. There may be some things that could have been done better to get us there, but overall, like, did it leave me like upset or like feeling numb to the trilogy as a whole? No, I was like, oh, that was good. You know, was it great? No, but it was good, and I still like Batman.
This is one of the few movies where I feel like Christopher Nolan just really didn't have it in him. Like, it lacks the passion that the rest of his movies has, in my opinion, at least. I have to call out.
It also features one of his most glaring movie mistakes.
Oh, insane! When what's the actress' name who plays Talia al Ghul? When she dies,
Maria Cotillard. What's her name?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Marion Cotillard. Yeah.
When she dies in the movie, spoiler, I guess, but it's comic. It's comedic. She's just like, she just like falls asleep. It's so funny.
Unintentionally, yeah.
Tom Hardy as Bane. I remember people were like, I don't know. I just can't buy the fact. I won't talk about this too much, but I can't buy the fact.
I actually think Tom Hardy is pretty solid. It's just towards the end, his character kind of gets retroactively undermined. So
that. I'm talking about his physique. I'm like, Bane's supposed to be like this giant, which I know like it's not really feasible in a Nolan film. Like, you can't really make someone that big.
I mean, he's still pretty bulked up. Like, it's not like he's some small potatoes.
I know, but he's like 5'9". I'm like, I don't know. I couldn't get like not the Rock.
I felt he was fine at it. I think he's actually one of the better parts of the movie. Is his
performance wise, yes. If they could have like superimposed his face on like a bigger body, I don't know, but
yeah. I will tell you, I go back to the scene when Batman kind of returns, makes his presence known again to the city. And it does, even though, like I said, it features one of the most glaring movie mistakes. It's certainly that Nolan's done. But one of the ones I've seen the most, period, is it still feels like, oh, you just feel like the fun in that scene. It's like, wow, he gets you excited that Batman's back in just that one scene, you know. So at least in my opinion, you know. So, you know, but yeah, you know, that kind of feels like the last like subpar movie he did. You know, one of the few subpar movies he's done, honestly, because he's hit more times than he's missed. So it moved into Interstellar, which you mentioned already, and curious your thoughts about it, because I definitely have thoughts.
Yeah, it's a big movie. I remember back in the day, people were like, oh, like Christopher Nolan's really trying to prove himself to be like the next Kubrick. This is his 2001 Space Odyssey. And I saw it last night, so kind of like following it's like fresh in my mind. I think I know what you're going to critique, and I have the same issues with it, the whole like theme of the movie. But I think this is one of this could be like a drinking game, but milestone movie. I feel like after he made Interstellar, he kind of went on this like crazy career path where he's like, I just gotta like understand the science of all this stuff, and just gotta make it feasible for my audience members to understand it. You know, like I feel like he got so attached to the actual like astrophysics of how all this works, like with the black hole to space travel, where he like kind of like it changed how he makes movies basically. And I think what I enjoyed most about this movie is this feels, although flawed in many ways, it feels like one of the first kind of this chapter in Nolan's career movie that truly feels like only he could make a movie like this, if that makes any sense.
I get you.
And like, yeah, just like the aesthetic of like being a cornfield juxtaposed with like, you know, what's more, I guess, like cornfield and space travel, like that juxtaposition is just like such a cool way of telling a story. Yeah. There's a lot to appreciate about this movie, but I think I know what you're about to say. The whole like love transcends space and time. I'm like, okay. Like I remember hearing that. I'm like, oh, it really is that bad. I'm like,
it just doesn't land well. And Nolan's actually like open like that, like romance and emotional beats are not necessarily his strong suit as a filmmaker, or at least it wasn't. I think he's, with his last few movies, has I think, successfully push back against that. But it is that's my main critique of the film, and that's also, I think, one of his more overrated movies. Is actually, I don't know what it is on IMDb, but on Letterboxd it's like shockingly highly rated. 4.5 is the average rating.
On IMDb, I think it's like 17, my mistake, 17.
Okay, yeah. So I it's another one of the same with Inception, but I'd argue even to a greater degree that it's just overrated. It's like I don't understand why people hold it in as high esteem as it is. I think it's because certain things about it hit so well. It probably just glosses over or allows people to forget some of the more wonkier stuff when it comes to like, oh, love transcends, blah, blah, blah. Because it still feels very emotional at times, and the actors do a really good job at selling some of those emotional beats, So it does, visually speaking, it might be just from an effects level, probably his best. Like it's just really cool, the stuff he does with space travel, the things he comes up with planets, like what planets would look like, if they had like a bunch of different climates and whatnot. So it's definitely still got its merits. It's still an entertaining film. It is a little long. I think it definitely could be trimmed a little bit. It has a great at the time, I feel like, against type performance by Matt Damon. Not in the movie ton, but when he is, it's really good. He's what, for whatever reason, when I watched that film, I had no idea he was in it. So it came as a complete
I felt
surprise.
the same way. I felt the same way the first time I saw it. I remember like, in the whole time he's in the movie, half of that time, I'm like, oh, out of nowhere, I'm like, oh shoot, that's Matt Damon. I'm just piecing that together. It's really funny. I don't know. I was pleasantly surprised by how much I like this movie. It's flawed in many ways, but I don't know. Again, it's just kind of like that passion really resonated with me. I think like the costume designs look really cool. I like to see like the astronaut costumes that they're wearing. I'm like, that's like someone actually had to design that, like a costume designer. It's just so cool. I think the TARS robots are a little funny looking, but yeah, they're a little too goofy, but
yeah. I think I do it. Hey, and here's the thing. It's a swing. It was original sci-fi. We could use more of that, and it wasn't a swing or a miss. It was maybe a double instead of a home run, So
I think to kind of piggyback up what you're saying, because I know we have to talk about Odyssey still, but I think for a lot of people, I'm not going to pretend like I'm smarter than this movie. Like there's still a lot of stuff I don't quite understand with like the whole like relativity theory and all that. But I feel like for a lot of people, it's just kind of like they felt like a level of satisfaction that they saw a movie so intelligent and like they're able to kind of understand what's happening. I think it was kind of more like, because I kind of felt that way too when I first saw it. I'm like, oh, that was really...
Nolan made people feel smart.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you for saying that. That's kind of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, this is a way of putting it. Anyway,
I'm a sucker for it too.
That's true.
I'm a sucker for it too.
Yeah, fair. All right, so moving on. Nolan's first and so far only war film, Dunkirk, and it tells the story of Dunkirk, the miracle of Dunkirk, as it's sometimes referred to, where 400,000 Allied soldiers in World War II were stranded at the beach of Dunkirk and were basically trapped between the sea and the Nazi forces. And true to Nolan, he tells it in a unique way. He follows three different storylines. One that takes place over a week, the next one that takes place over a day, and then the next one that takes place over an hour. And they converge, and they all converge as the story continues, to end up at the same point. But it's obviously, from like a story standpoint, one of his least ambitious, because it's just a historical, a story, like just very much matter of fact, like going through what happened, at Dunkirk. But it comes across at least to me, and I just watched it recently again, so this might be, but it hits pretty hard at the end, just from an emotional level. It's like you really get conveyed like the scope of like how it was a disaster, like from a military perspective, but it truly also was miraculous how, how many of the soldiers ended up making it out and gave them the chance to fight another day. So you do get that scope, that the end of the film, or towards the end of the film, when some of the soldiers have come back to England, they're passing by this old blind guy who's just, I forget, handing them food or whatever, and he's basically saying, "Well done, lads, well done." And one of them says what do you mean we lost? And he said, "No, you survived. That's enough." And it's a great look at the psyche, just the fact that they were able to make it out gave the national psyche a boost,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a great movie about time, which is funny enough. Even the score is kind of built around a ticking clock. I wish I saw this one earlier because I'm really enjoying it. My biggest issue with it is I really wish he went for a hard R. That's the one thing always takes me out of the movies is explosions, which you'd be kind of, not that I want to see body parts, but I'm
you want to see blood and guts, Jose.
I mean, for a war movie, kind of. But
I will say though, as far as war movies, just because of this particular story, it's not like there was that much opportunity for a ton of graphic, nature. I'm not saying he couldn't have put it, but it's not like it was rampant, so it's I can see why he cut it out. And that wasn't, the point of it was less, Saving Private Ryan obviously is the preeminent example with its D-Day sequence of just the horror of war, in battle. But this is kind of to show the horror of war in the sense of being trapped and having no way out. And just, it's more of a psychological war film than, a traditional one.
No, I agree. It's it's a very unique, war movie, which I feel today there's just so many war movies. How else can you tell a war story that we haven't seen before? I think you kind of hit the nail on the head in the sense that, it is a war movie, but it's not guns firing at each other. It's kind of, you're right. It's a survival. It's how horrible is it to just be kind of trapped in this beach, basically, and not really able to escape and just being hit by planes at any moment. It's kind of very, it's scary. It's one of the few, I won't say it's a scary movie, but it's really, it's kind of sucks to be in their stance, in their situation, the soldiers. And it's a true story too. So yeah. I just wish I saw it. Honestly, I wish I saw it again. But
yeah, you should, and watch Darkest Hour back to back with it. It's a great companion piece. Shockingly, came out the same year, and it's literally just the opposite, the political side of what's going on in Dunkirk. It's just good. I'll say we'll move on. But last thing I'll say, that was his first film that was nominated for Best Picture, and also his first nominated for Best Director. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so, I was going to bring that up too.
Yeah. Moving on it's interesting because I just wonder how this movie would have landed if it wasn't, released during COVID. But Tenet, one of his other explicit sci-fi films that also features. But I find Tenet very fun. It's I think probably the film that suffers the most from his plot device of time, and that it just gets a little too, I won't say necessarily confusing, but it just doesn't make sense. Some of his stuff. It's very fun and it's deployed well for some of the sequences, but it just feels it does feel a little. Again, I don't know if I want to say confusing, because it's not like the film is confusing per se. It's just, it doesn't make sense. It feels like some of the most logic leaps, that in any of his movies, so.
Yeah, sure.
What are your thoughts?
It doesn't feel, I know, I agree. It doesn't feel like it's truly, I feel like he didn't even really know what he was trying to tell with the movie. I was actually going to bring up, it was the first time he kind of made headlines with controversy, trying to persuade people to go to the movies in the middle of the COVID pandemic. Like I couldn't even get to the movie theater because they're all locked down, which is kind of funny.
You know what? He persuaded me. I did it. Now I was out of town at the time, and that's a whole nother story. But
I had to go see it in a drive-in theater, and that was like not the best way to see a movie, I have to admit. But but I remember when I first saw it. It's interesting. I thought this was a 9 out of 10 movie, but the more I kind of dived into his career, and as he's been releasing more and more movies, I'm like, you know what, this is kind of not great. But to kind of like say why I enjoyed it initially, I kind of felt like it was kind of a self-parody in a great way. Like the protagonist doesn't even have a name. Even that, like I felt like he was just kind of giving in, like, hey, you know what, people make fun of me for this. I'm just going to kind of ham it up and just kind of do that, but do a very interesting concept with it. And I agree, like the action set pieces are really cool. I've never seen them like done. Like no one has, right? It's like kind of the first like reverse movie, of course, but it does lack a lot of substance, which kind of
just it feels one of his like I think you put like it feels like one of his least substantive films, So I will say, for me, kind of funny thing, it really, like, you already knew this because you had seen some of his post-Twilight performances, but it was the first time I'd really seen Robert Pattinson in anything aside from Twilight. So it was kind of like, oh, this guy can act, So,
yeah. Same with is it John David Washington? I kind of want to see him in more stuff because he in this movie he proved himself to be like quite a impactful action star.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just very, both of them just very charismatic.
He's a compelling protagonist, you might say.
Yeah. But no, it's really just a movie built around set pieces is really what it is. Like I say, what it was Oppenheimer, kind of seeing how this was like the follow up to Tenet. I'm like, dang, this movie really kind of isn't as great as I remember it being.
Yeah. It's to me, it's one of those movies, like, it's fun, but it's not like anywhere near transcendent, it's one of those movies, like, if somebody wanted to throw it on, I wouldn't be like opposed, but it's not one I'm like seeking out actively to rewatch.
I agree. It's a movie where like I rather just watch scenes than the whole movie, especially considering how long it is, like I said, I enjoyed it at the time, but it really does fall flat after all these years.
Well said. Well, you mentioned it. We're now hitting the final two. Oppenheimer is the next one, part of the cultural phenomenon known as Barbenheimer. Greta Gerwig's Barbie and Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer came out on the same weekend. Probably presented the preeminent example of why it's good to have counter programming at the movies. In this case, it ended up being pro programming for both of them because it, that meme started where, Barbenheimer, go see him on the same day, and you and I saw it on the same day with friends, so we were not immune to that. But Oppenheimer represents his first biopic, first and only to this point biopic, and I mean, I think you like this movie more than me, even though I still think it's very good. But I think what it really probably cemented his place as the most commercially successful filmmaker of our time, because he took a 3-hour R-rated biopic drama about the father of the nuclear bomb. That's mostly just character drama. There's very few sequences built on like action or explosion. Obviously the nuclear test is a big exception to that, and he turned it into a major blockbuster. It made almost $1 billion. It won Best Picture, won Best Director, won Best Actor, etc. Picked up all these awards. So definitely his, what I feel like kind of like really like gave him his due, at that point. It was like everything he'd worked for in his career. This was like the crescendo of it. And this was like, oh, this guy is truly one of the great filmmakers of our era.
I agree. Like I said, this is a movie that kind of made me reconsider his whole career up until this point. Well, I guess it's still fresh in his career, but I feel like all the criticisms that people have had with him, including myself, was that, he didn't really know how to write characters. but this is like one of the first like kind of actual like you're right, like a character driven story that he actually handled really well. I'm remembering up later, but like, it's just a great story about like how this guy was just never really able to, up until the point where he builds a bomb. It's just like, hey, is this even possible? Like the history behind that is all very fascinating. But then there's the whole idea of like, oh, he never got like a good night's sleep after he created the bomb. It's just like such a captivating story. I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the nuclear test, I think, is one of the just most well done sequences, and honestly, probably cinematic history. It's just, you feel like you're there, especially if you're in the theater watching it, right? Like you feel like you're there during the nuclear test, and you just feel like the weight of like how awesome the power of that is. The destructive power of that is. It's just incredibly transportative in how it immerses you into like, oh, I'm there. I'm experiencing a nuclear test. I'm feeling the power of a nuclear bomb. It does a really good job simulating that. Obviously, you and I haven't experienced a nuclear bomb in real life. Hopefully, we never will. But
hopefully not.
I'm guessing that is the closest we will come to experiencing that, and it does it really well. I also think, oddly enough, Cillian Murphy was like considered like a good actor and stuff, but I think that honestly probably gave a lot of people like a higher opinion of him, like realized, oh, this guy's really good, range wise too, with his portrayal of Oppenheimer.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of made him a household name.
Yeah, for sure. So, it I think just kind of proved once again that Nolan, you give him the money, he'll deliver the goods. And so, unless you have more to say on that, I think we can move into the final, his most recent film, currently playing in theaters, sold out nationwide. Well, not nationwide, certain formats, but the adaptation of the Odyssey, the epic poem based on Greek mythology, follows the Greek warrior Odysseus on his journey back from the war in Troy, and his journey home, and just all the different things that happened to him on that journey. And it's you obviously did not appreciate the movie to the same degree I did, but I think it's a masterpiece. There's no other way to say it. I love that movie. I think it's without question his greatest since The Dark Knight. We're talking about the rankings in a bit, but it's just such it just feels like such a piece of like a director at the like absolute peak of his powers. Like he has everything working for him. The writing, the visual effects, obviously he has the budget to pull that off. The cast, like the amount of like stars that are in the movie that are just even in just smaller roles. It's like this guy is the shit, So with that being said, the movie's also just really good. The story, I don't know how familiar you are with Odyssey. I was loosely familiar with it. I've actually been reading it kind of alongside my various viewings of it, but it's just so, from a narrative perspective, just the things he sets up early in the movie thematically, and that kind of reaches its through line by the end of the film, are just so poetic. I mean, it's based on a poem, but it comes across like very, very poetic.
Okay. Yeah.
What are your initial thoughts? Ready to tell me that I'm wrong?
Well, I saw it. How many times have you seen it? You've seen it twice already?
I've seen it twice. Yeah.
Have you seen it in 70 millimeter IMAX yet or no?
Nope. But tomorrow I will be doing so.
Oh, tomorrow's the day. Okay.
Tomorrow night at 10 p.m.
Oh, it's gonna be late.
I'm gonna be at City Walk till 2 p.m. or 2 a.m.
I think you're gonna be out by 1 actually. Because
No,
I
because
seen it three times.
It starts at 10:30, so it'd be 11:30, 12:30, 1:30. Yeah, so I guess 1:30. But I'll probably be at City Walk till 2 a.m. you know,
Both times I've seen it, all three times I've seen it. I noticed with trailers and everything, it's like perfectly exactly 3 hours. So unless they add more trailers, which it's very likely, but
well, this has I mean, you probably saw it, the Dune prologue. Yeah, yeah.
Oh man, I really want to talk about that, but
We're talking about that another day.
I've never seen a sneak peek that just made me want to eagerly try to get another ticket to see something in an IMAX theater like that. I'll leave it at that.
That's so funny because I have friends who said the opposite, thought it kind of decreased some of their interest in it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about that. Dune 3 coming soon to theaters near you. We're talking about that another day.
So anyways, I saw it 3 times. Just kind of talk about why I did that. I got my tickets to see it in the 70 millimeter IMAX format. But before that, I was kind of asked by my friends if I want to see it early. And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I decided to because I was getting FOMO. And I was impressed the first time I saw it. The next day I went to take my mom and dad because I just know they weren't going to catch it in the theater. And I'm like, you guys need to see it in the theater. So I invited them and we all went to go see it together. And then as of Tuesday, today is Thursday, Monday, today's Thursday, I saw it again in 70 millimeter IMAX. And I mean, it's a big movie. It's a lot of movie. And there's a lot of masterpiece scenes in there. I mean, it's Odyssey. So the Cyclops scene is one of the bigger standouts for me. And overall, I think we might kind of rebuttal a little bit, but like I said, I enjoyed it. I had a great time. There's not a whole lot of movies like this, And so when it comes around to cinema, and that's kind of why I went to go see it 3 times. Cause I know I'm not going to see this again for a very, very long time, honestly.
Yeah. And I'm giving you a hard time. The fact is you still like the film, maybe not as much as me, but you still like the film,
Yeah. But there is a lot of, I should say a lot, but there's a lot of big flaws, I guess, that kind of just take me out of the movie. One thing I'll talk about right now is, how about you? What do you think about the movie? I guess you kind of already talked about it.
No, I mean, I already said, I think it's a masterpiece. Truly, I do. I mean, the thing that is not that he does pretty significantly change character wise from the poem, as far as what I've read, is he does make Odysseus more of an explicitly honorable figure. Still very flawed, but it works in the context of the film because the film is really, at least in my interpretation, kind of about him learning humility. And only after he's just kind of broken and submits himself to the forces, in this case, the quote unquote gods, is when he, finds his way back home at that point. And then he, kind of makes his glorious return, so to speak. So it's just very poetic. There's so much in the movie. To the imagery, I mean the whole Athena imagery, what they kind of reveal about Zendaya's portrayal of Athena, I thought was really well done. Was just it just kind of makes everything click in retrospect. His interactions I don't want to spoil it too much, but they make a specific choice and highlight something about her character later on towards the end of the film that kind of recontextualizes her interactions with him. So stuff like that. I thought that all the different fantastical encounters were supremely well done, just on effects level. It's hard to get any better than that. We're talk more probably at some point about the first horror sequence, quote unquote, that Nolan's done, but extremely well done. Just proves his versatility as a director. But it also, returning to the themes of what we've talked about, just looking at his entire career in this episode, it probably, I think, is his most successful at telling a nonlinear narrative cohesively. It jumps around a lot, but I found it very easy to follow. It also just felt like thematically it worked, all the editing choices he made, and so that's just my personal opinion. But I found it the most kind of cohesive of his work in that sense, of ones that employ the nonlinear device.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing I agree with you there. Because like throughout the movie, it does like kind of just jump here and there like multiple different times. The whole Calypso scene with Charlize Theron is just like kind of sprinkled in throughout the movie. It's like just out of nowhere, but it doesn't feel like it's out of place. It serves its purpose of like why it's inserted at these certain points throughout the story. So I agree with you. It is I don't know if it's the most cohesive is the word to use, but because I think all of his like nonlinear stories are cohesive. I don't think this is like revolutionary with this film, but it still works well. Um, when I think of, I'm kind of happy we talked about all these movies because you know, like if we go back to Inception, I feel like the biggest kind of like highlight with behind the scenes stuff is like they build that rig where like the hallway is like rotating, so it looks like they're like floating. Um, you know, that's like something that he never did before in any of his movies. Another example is like blowing up the hospital in The Dark Knight. I think that's what really kind of blowing up the plane in Tenet, for example. He's just like really good at kind of always one-upping himself and just kind of creating like different ways of actually telling a story, which I've never seen him do in previous movies. So like, for example, the Cyclops scene, which I think there's a misinterpretation. They built a puppet, but the puppet's not actually seen in the movie. It's just kind of more to serve as like something so the actors could react to. But it's still impressive though when you see the puppets. Like that's really cool. They actually like brought in like, I guess I don't know the correct like Broadway term, but like people who pull strings to like make the Cyclops move so they can react to that. The
Puppeteer.
whole puppeteer, sure, there you go. Yeah, you're right. The whole scene with Cersei where like the faces were deforming, which I won't spoil, but you know, there's like some sort of like I don't know if you've seen it,
spoil part of it, but
yeah. But it's the same practical effects that were done in a movie, American Werewolf in London, which I don't know if you've seen, but it's just kind of him like taking.
No, but I'm aware of the effects you're talking about. Yeah,
yeah, it's just kind of cool seeing him take like these, not even necessarily like new ways of practical effects. It's all been done before, but he just kind of elevates it to a degree where it just makes it way more immersive than I've ever seen before in a movie. I mean, the Cyclops scene too. It's again, you don't see the puppet, so it's not like really impressive because I think it's just like a CGI, like they just kind of enlarge the image of the actor. But the way that the scene plays out as a horror film is just really well done. Like you never really think of Christopher Nolan as like a horror director, but with this movie, he kind of proved himself to be like versatile in many different subgenres with action, with horror, with drama, and it's really impressive. Like again, despite my criticisms, it's still like a very, very impressive movie. Like kind of one of its unique in that way. The whole underworld scene was also very creepy. Just the music's great too.
the score is incredible. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
My issue with the movie, though, which I'm hoping to hear your theory or your maybe rebuttal, is that it's like I think our friend, I'm gonna give him a shout out, but Kellen, he kind of said it best. It's like I never really knew when exactly. What do you say? I never really knew when exactly.
Too many famous actors, you know, or actresses are too much, but this movie is it.
It's not even, and I kind of feel that way. It's not like necessarily like it's too many star actors. It's kind of more like, do they serve the piece? Like, do I really feel like Matt Damon was like the perfect casting choice for Odysseus? Don't get me wrong. He gave a good performance, but I mean, when I see Matt Damon, I'm like, I know there's like a whole online controversy thing where like, oh, like black people didn't exist back in ancient Greece. Why are they here? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking more about like when I see Matt Damon or Tom Holland, I can't buy the fact that they exist in ancient Greece. They look too.
He said obnoxiously distracting was his term. That
I said they look too American, which I know sounds silly, but they don't really. It's not really something I want to think about when I'm watching an ancient Greek movie. For example, like someone who did a performance really well was like Anne Hathaway, for example. You know, like she's American, but she really sold her role really well. Like I was able to buy the fact that she kind of existed.
But you weren't able to buy that with Matt Damon.
Not really, no.
Interesting. I thought it was with a glaring omission. I have not seen Good Will Hunting. That will be changing soon. With that exception, with that notable exception, I think that is the best I've ever seen Matt Damon.
Okay, so see, that's the thing. I mean, that's fair. But like when I saw Interstellar recently, I'm like, oh man, he like really is selling this role. You know, I feel like
He's great
Interstellar
in
was
Interstellar too. Yeah, but I just think he carried. Obviously, Interstellar is more of a supporting role. He is the film. I mean, the entire film revolves around him in the Odyssey. It's a make or break. If he doesn't succeed, then the film doesn't succeed. You know, and I just thought he successfully conveyed all the different emotions that the character would be going through in the film. He also obviously was dedicated enough to get ripped for the role.
he was pretty jacked. I was wondering if that's like his normal body, but
No, he had to train for it. He's joked about how it's like been the most difficult role he's trained for. So
okay,
yeah.
Well, I guess we're gonna have to like agree to disagree. Again, he gave a good performance. It's kind of more like it's. I know it doesn't sound like a fair criticism, but it really comes down to like the face. You know, I'm like, did you like? I don't know. But
you just hate Matt Damon's face. He's ugly.
No, but like on that same token, though, I'm trying to think of like. Let me give me a second to like look up these actors' names, but like Himish Patel, like I think he gave a very compelling role. Like I was able to buy that he was like his right hand man. I guess like throughout the movie, even though I wasn't able to buy a lot of performances,
no, but
no.
So it goes. but in that's the thing. Just kind of quick side on the casting because I don't want to get too consumed to talk about the casting controversy that isn't. But it is just a reminder that the film is a myth. Like it's based on mythology. You can't worry too much about historical accuracy because it's not actually history. It's got historical trappings, but it's a myth, and it's as long as the characters are true to the interpretation being set forth, that's all that matters.
Okay, sure. I was going to say another. I kind of wish the scenes were a little more consistent with each other, but only like one scene really comes to mind where it's like, oh, I wish this was handled a little better. It was the scene with Scylla. You know what I'm talking about? The 6-headed.
Yeah, thing. Yeah.
I was like, I kind of wish like there was so many great.
A little bit longer, or what? Less CGI,
not even longer. It's just kind of like the way the effort and commitment it took to make the Cyclops scene and Cersei's and I'm forgetting the name, but the giant. They're supposed to be cannibals, but they're not cannibals in this movie. The giant like warriors.
Yeah, they're just giants.
Yeah, the set pieces there were like really well done. Throughout those scenes, I was, a lot of the time I'm like, how did they achieve that? Like I was like kind of looking at the filmmaking with the Scylla scene. It was just kind of more like it felt like they just didn't really know how to make that scene look interesting. So they just took like a very easy way and remind me a lot of like Dead Man Tell, or which one is it? Dead Man's Chest with the Kraken, I feel like it's something I haven't, I feel like it's familiar, and I kind of wish it wasn't familiar.
I think you could. I don't agree with the take, but I think it's fair to have a different interpretation on that. I think it works fine because it's coming on it's like a capper basically to an extended sequence before with the whirlpool. So it's meant to be like kind of like quick as just like shock and awe. It's like, oh, we just made it, and then boom, 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 all these guys are suddenly gone.
Yeah. I was saying it was a capper to the underworld scene.
It's more about that too, but I mean it's more about the reactive, like it's more about like what it did than what it's doing, if that makes sense, or what you saw.
Yeah, that makes
what you saw.
That makes sense.
So
that makes sense. But I guess what I'm trying to do right now is just like trying to justify why like I didn't love it as much as everyone. But I still saw it 3 times. I if I didn't love the movie, I wouldn't have done that. So, I mean, yeah, it's great.
So your two main critiques is the cast. The cast was a little distracting. Because of the sheer star power, not because obviously of a.
Not even star power. Like I said. The best way I can describe it is like I question if I'm picking on Tom Holland and Matt Damon too much, but like other examples is like John Bernthal. Who else is there? Benny Safdie. Like, did they really serve the piece, or were they just there because I don't know, like Christopher
Benny
Nolan
Safdie,
wanted.
I think you can make an argument, but then again, you don't even really see his face most of the time.
No, I know.
So.
I threw him in there because I couldn't think of another person right at the moment. Why can't I think of anyone else in this movie?
Robert Pattinson is the big one. We haven't talked about, which we will. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he was great too. Despite like not.
He's
like
fantastic.
Travis Scott's another example.
Yeah.
I mean, Elliot Page is another example. Like he gave a really excellent performance as well. Mia Goth also, I'm like, didn't quite fit the role for me. I don't know. It just really came down to like.
I don't know if it fit the role. I think they all do fine. They all do fine in the roles. It's just, you might be like, oh, do we really need this caliber of an actor or actress in this role? But that's minor quibbles in my opinion.
Going off with like other critiques with the movie, I've seen it 3 times. I really just kind of all like on the second and third viewing, I'm like the opening montage and exposition scene. I feel like it's interesting hearing like where we're at and like what the circumstances are. Like at this point, Odysseus has been gone for 27 years or however long he is. But I just kind of find myself like there's just so much to take into the movie that just kind of makes it boring at that point. I don't know. I can't quite explain it, but it's almost like I wasn't really able to. It's just not it's not really told in an interesting way. I feel like it's just kind of like a matter of fact. Like we just got to explain what's happening so we get to the good stuff. I'm not sure if you felt that way, but
no, obviously not. I felt like everything worked so well in the film. I mean, I basically, I feel like I keep saying that and like not giving anything because I feel like I'd have to go through basically recap the entire film to go into it. But, I mean, even just as an aside, like the impact you see of I'm forgetting his character's name, but Robert Pattinson's character, like getting like the backstory with him and Elliot Page's character, like figuring out that dynamic and how that informs the rest of his character. It's just so many little things. You have obviously the dog, informs you about Odysseus's character. And also, I don't know about you, I cried at that scene.
Oh yeah,
that particular
it was really
scene.
emotional.
Yeah. So it's just so well done. I also, granted, I was at a cinephile friendly crowd in my first screening. It was at one of Tarantino's theaters, the Vista, but it definitely felt to me like the most crowd pleasing Nolan film. That makes sense. Like there's just like there's some moments that's like, whoa, it's like, yeah, finally, and not in a bad way. It feels earned. Like it feels great. It was just surprising to me because of all how we've talked about how commercially successful he's been, and coming off stuff like Batman stuff, like how crowd pleasing this film felt, especially given it's based on a source material that has never really been truly adapted before, or attempted to be adapted to the scope that it was, that is. So yeah, it's pretty funny, so, yeah, I think it's just great across the board. And yeah, I really, truly, as my rating for masterpiece is, would I change anything about the movie? And I can't think of one thing it would change. It worked really well. Like all of it, including the cast. I thought every one of the cast was great. Yeah, you can make the point of that. Oh, did it really need all these stars and all these roles? No, but also at the same time, just from a pure spectacle perspective, isn't that what movies are about, right? Like we're wanting to see like all the greatest stars, the biggest stars on the screen with the best filmmakers possible, with the best visual effects, best story. That's what this film feels like to me. It feels like a true epic. The only thing I can really compare it to is Lord of the Rings, just in terms of how epic it feels and how everything's just, and I know you don't have as high of a esteem as Lord of the Rings as me, but you still appreciate them as filmmaking. as filmmaking,
epics.
Great works. Yeah. And that's what this feels like. It just feels like we don't, understandably so, because of how hard it is to successfully pull it off. But it's just, it does feel like, oh, we could stand with more of these. And clearly people feel that way because they're turning up in droves for it. I mean, it's another R-rated film, and it's probably going to gross over $1 billion, which is rare for. There's only one or two R-rated films that have grossed over $1 billion in history.
Yeah, Oppenheimer and three, I think.
Oppenheimer didn't gross $1 billion. It was just under. But Joker, and I feel like there was something else. Oh, Deadpool and Wolverine.
Passion of the Christ too.
That didn't gross $1 billion.
Did it not? Okay, no. I'm losing my mind.
Okay. It's okay.
I'm confusing success for $1 billion, but that's not always the case.
No, that's not the case. Just look at Obsession. Insanely successful. Not anywhere close to $1 billion. But yeah, go ahead.
I do want to say, like an example I can think about is like Dune. That's another movie with like a lot of star powers, but I feel like every star in that movie does serve the role. But I don't want to like talk about that too much, because like whatever the goal is for this episode or these episodes, I feel like I'm failing because I'm just like trying so hard to justify my rating. I think ultimately what I want to get at is like the movie is excellent in many ways. There's like a lot of edge of your seat stuff, which we even talked about, like the Battle of Troy was like just another well handled scene. Just like edge of my seat stuff happening there. No, I mean, this, like I said, there's not like a lot of movies that come out that are on this scale. Of course, there's some in history like Ben-Hur and Lawrence of Arabia, which you and I kind of, saw together and then one like simultaneously, basically. I would put this movie in that same category for sure, just because it does feel like a feat in filmmaking. It's kind of like everyone giving them their all and basically achieving what they meant out to do, which is just make the Odyssey, and they achieved it at making it such an epic scale.
Yeah, I remember Nolan in one of his interviews said like, they were asking, the interviewee was asking like, hey, when can we expect your next film? Normally you're like 2 to 3 year time, and he's like, well, I don't know about that. I mean, this was pretty difficult. I mean, of course it's the Odyssey. It should be difficult, but it sounds like it took a lot out of him. So you appreciate that, because it's like he's not just trying to crank stuff out. He's like truly like dedicating himself to pulling off the best possible version of whatever project he's working on, and, at my estimation, he did that. And even though you don't hold it in as high of esteem as me, as you stated, you appreciate the pure filmmaking, like sheer force of that's shown on screen,
Well, so. For example, like it doesn't even sound that complicated, but since you and I have worked on film sets, we kind of get it. Like even like the mundane scenes, like they're just on a ship, a little boat. That doesn't sound like interesting. It's just like them talking on a boat. But it's the fact that they're on a boat in open water that is just so, like, how do you even film that? Because it's not just the actors there, right? It's like a whole crew of people who are supposed to be on that boat. Like, how could they even fit all that people on a boat? And then keep in mind too, it's an IMAX camera that they're working with. So how do they even get like that giant piece of machinery on a boat? It's impressive to that degree too.
Which go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean that's pretty much the point. Like it's not even necessarily the big set pieces. It's even like the small parts too, like being on the boat. It's just it's a movie that looks tiring to me.
The immersive feeling of it. Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, you brought up the IMAX. We should note, obviously, right, that part of the reason it's consistently sold out in IMAX is because it's the first ever film shot entirely in IMAX, because Nolan has the cred to where he was able to get IMAX to actually do something for him and build a rig that dampens the sound of the IMAX camera, which before has been the big headache with them, is you can't record sound because of how noisy they are. So, the fact that, also just put aside whatever your thoughts are on the film at an artistic level, it's just groundbreaking in that sense, right? Like, obviously we're going to now have other films. It's not like it's going to be everyone, but there are going to be other films of this scope that will utilize that. And Nolan's kind of the pioneer of utilizing IMAX to this degree.
And to piggyback off that too, kind of like to what I was saying earlier, like how complicated the mundane scenes are. And to your point too, that's entirely shot in IMAX. Again, it's like things that the average person wouldn't really notice, but it's even like shooting a scene with an IMAX camera, film for that matter too, which isn't really good at like exposing light properly. They're doing a lot of these scenes in candlelit scenes, which is like impressive in its own way too. Such low lighting, but they're able to capture like perfect lighting for the actors with a camera that's not really suitable for that dark of a room. It's funny too, because I'm not sure if you noticed, it's not really critique because I get like how complicated it is. And our buddy Ryan actually pointed out too, but a lot of the shots were like out of focus in the darker scenes just because it's such low lighting. It's kind of hard to like kind of focus pull because it's just so, the lens is so open. It's kind of hard to focus the image. And that's just impressive in its own way too. But yeah, overall, I had a great time. And I saw it 3 times in a week. I don't know if I'm going to watch again for a while. I think I'm going to tap out, but I'll rather watch it.
I'm seeing, you got to space it out. I'm just seeing it week by week. That's more reasonable. I've seen it 4 times. It's it truly. I mean, I think we've both kind of put it out there. Like it's a film. No matter your thoughts on it, you need to see it in theaters. You need to. It's a requirement. If you have any interest in it whatsoever, go see it in theaters. Heck, if you don't have interest in it whatsoever, go see it in theaters because maybe your mind will be changed. You're fine. So it's, I mean, just a complete spectacle, a massive feat of filmmaking, and the trajectory it's on is just showing again that Nolan's kind of the greatest living director from a commercial and to, arguably an artistic standpoint as well. So it's going to gross $1 billion. Like, and again, we talked about like very few R-rated films can do that, let alone for a genre that's been pretty much dead for however many decades, sword and sandals genre. So yeah, it's hats off to him and the entire crew that was involved. So with that being said, do we want to kind of reveal our personal ranking of Nolan to kind of cap the episode, this celebration of one of the greatest filmmakers of our era?
We could go for another hour, just make it as long as the Odyssey, but I think it's a good time to close.
I think we could. Yeah, I think we should wrap it up. You or me first, or do we want to reveal it one by one?
I'd be down for that, but we have a buddy waiting, so I think we should just. I think we should just go one.
That's true. Yeah.
Sorry, okay. Folks. But
sorry, folks. So you or me?
So I'll go first. I'll keep mine first for short. I'm going to omit The Prestige just because again I have to rewatch that. But going from worst to best, I think I'm going to do Dark Knight Rises, my least favorite, Insomnia, following Batman Begins. You might hate me for this, but I think Odyssey, Interstellar, Inception, Tenet, The Dark Knight, Dunkirk, Oppenheimer, and then Memento being the best. But reading that out loud, I might want to reconsider the list, but that's what I have right now on Letterboxd. But that's kind of how it goes right now.
I was going to say, it's kind of crazy. You have Odyssey behind Tenet, but,
I think Tenet's way lower.
Yeah, I think tweaks to be made.
Everything I said, I'm going to put Tenet behind Odyssey. So following Tenet, Odyssey, and then the list continues that way.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. And I have following, kind of no real slight guess. It's just it's clearly a young filmmaker. Hey, can I do that? No. So it's still a good film, just not something like I think about consistently, and definitely like you can see he's learning the ropes. Dark Knight Rises, we've kind of obviously already talked about. Easily the weakest Batman, feels like kind of his most studio driven film. Interstellar, I think it's one of his most overrated, still visually appealing. Tenet, just a little hollow story-wise, but still a fun time at the movies. Inception, also in my opinion, kind of overrated, but it's a real fun time. Insomnia, which honestly, Insomnia I could kind of put between that and Inception. They both are good films. They both have, I think they do things better than the other, but they're not like stuff like I consistently seek out to rewatch. Oppenheimer and Dunkirk. Oppenheimer I just put below because I find myself more invested in Dunkirk. versus Oppenheimer, but Oppenheimer is still fantastic. And I mean, we talked about like the nuclear test. That's like filmmaking at its finest right there. Dunkirk is just great how he, takes a war film and puts his own unique stamp on it. Memento, we talked about, that's what set him on the map. Obviously, kind of, I think, established kind of his filmmaking style to a degree. Batman Begins kind of started the path of kind of reshaping what we think of what superhero movies can be. The Prestige, which you will watch again and hopefully rank highly. Great film, great themes, also just very entertaining. And then The Odyssey, which we've talked about at length. It's the movie of the hour, so to speak. Fantastic spectacle. And it would unquestionably be, I think, the crown jewel of any filmmaker's filmography if that filmmaker also hadn't directed The Dark Knight. And I struggle with it after seeing The Odyssey, but I keep coming back to The Dark Knight because The Dark Knight has so much more source material behind it, whereas Odyssey, it's just the poem for the most part, and it's like the fact that he was able to kind of rise above all the trappings of that source material and deliver something that felt so fresh, I think is what gives it the slight edge for me. I consider both masterpieces, but of my personal favorites, I think it's The Dark Knight.
Okay, cool. Very different list we have, you and I.
Yeah. Hey, but we all agree he's great. Hey, go watch The Odyssey if you haven't already. It's worth paying $100 for the Odyssey tickets. I should know.
I mean, I pretty much paid that.
I'm joking. I did not pay $100 for the tickets. I did pay money for the popcorn bucket. So didn't assume.
I mean, all three showings, I probably paid about $100 already. So
yeah, that's true. You gotta come down and get an AMC A-list, my friend. Anyway, so hey, I think we're getting wrapped with that. Christopher Nolan, the filmmaker of the hour, the filmmaker of one of the filmmakers of our time. Go see The Odyssey. This was an odyssey of an episode.
Yes,
I must say it's long, but if you like Christopher Nolan, if you like movies, if you like popcorn and pictures, you like this episode. I, your host, Sam Karpinski, signing off along with your co-host, Mr. Jose Mendoza.
Yep. Homer, that's me.
Yeah. He's saying goodbye.
Goodbye.
Good night, folks.
Am I muted? No.